good guy Chris Rosser, good guy Gemfan, because Gemfan has received a patent. What do they patent, and what are they going to do with the patent? That's the question.
Yeah, so Gemfan has filed for and received at this point the patent for quite a few different props I was able to dig up, but the main one that they're talking about here is going to be the 51466, and that's the information they've linked here. And essentially the idea is they're saying that, like, hey, just so you guys know, we do have this patent, we own the patent for this, and we will be enforcing this patent with other companies.
I guess, like, for example, this adaptation, this is not a T-mount, is it? That's that thing that Gemfan does where you can have a T-mount and a 5mm prop in the same prop. I've never seen that before. I think they invented it. And if they told me they patented it, I'd be like, okay. But that's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about basically the specific characteristics of the prop itself. Gemfan Hobby is actually in the chat, so they could certainly weigh in. I guess the question people are going to ask is, like, what are you patenting? It's a prop. It's an airfoil. What are you patenting? I mean, I guess they received the patent, so they must have defined that in a reasonable way.
So to be clear, this is the design patent. This is not a utility patent. So this is strictly design patent. One of the confusing things, though, that I have about this, I'm not a patent lawyer. However, if you pull up that second link, if you pull up that second link we've got there, we can take a quick look at the Google patent filing. They've linked a bunch of the different props here, just a bunch of different views of it. And basically the way the design patent reads is like, hey, we're patented that stuff. But there's a separate section here, and in many of these drawings, they do broken lines, and broken lines segment out which part is patented and which part is just part of the picture, you know. So it's hard for me to understand here what exactly is marked out as a patent.
Is the middle part the part that's being patented, or is the middle part the part that's being marked out?
Well, the problem is, I'm hoping Gemfan can clear this up for us, but I'm not sure how this works, because if you'll look at our next link here that I have for you, this is an example of another design patent marked as you typically would. And the difference is that you can see clearly which is not part of the patent and which is part of the patent here. But they marked those dashes there, but the sides of the prop are not dashed. So I'm not sure how this is delineating which part is which.
All right. I'm sure that they feel that it's clear. Does it say which aspect of the prop?
Well, that's
is
the thing. It's
patented?
a design patent, so it doesn't really have to do that.
It's just like, this is what we're patenting.
So look,
anything that looks like this.
See on the left description there, and then the right.
Yeah, I do see it.
So that's all that's there.
I claim the ornamental design for an aircraft propeller as shown and described. So basically, nobody can release a prop that looks like this, and it's up to lawyers to figure out what is too much like that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So they say, Gemfan in the chat says, the full set of design characteristics for the 51466, the detailed and specific shape, hub, blade, pitch, airfoil profile, and design as a whole. But basically, something that, utility patents are meant for actual utility. So if somebody else was able to prove, like, hey, we had to make it look like this so that we got this certain thrust pattern, then they couldn't do anything about that, because if that's the only way to generate that thrust pattern provably, then that's the design you have to have, because you don't have a utility pattern on that. That's my understanding of how utility patterns work.
Gemfan seems to be saying that they have patented the 51466. That's, I mean, if someone had just made a mold of a 51466 and was selling the exact same prop, I mean, I guess you could argue that's, over the line in some way. I'm not sure how you're going to define what is and isn't. Like, if you look at hang on.
I think it will depend on, what the enforcement ends up looking like, right? If they do, like, start sending messages to people, right?
Like, if we look at the R38 from HQ, it is a very different, like, a layperson could look at that and say that's a very different profile than, like, the 51466 has a little bit of a dip here near the hub. There's a thicker part, right? It has just a very different shape. And I think anyone would agree those are different. But I guess I'm curious how you're going to define where the line is, where something is infringing versus not.
I think in this case, it's like Gemfan and their lawyers decide. They send a cease and desist. The people continue to do it or not continue to do it, and then they decide whether it's worth it to take them to court, and then if they can take them to U.S. court or not. And like, there's a whole thing there. So,
whenever there's patent enforcement like this, it's always it's always very divisive. I'll say that. Because some people feel very strongly that intellectual property deserves to be protected. Other people feel that aggressive IP protection or maybe overreaching IP protection stifles innovation. And everybody's going to come down in a different place. And then the flip side of that is that sometimes you have a patent and then you hold the patent, but you don't actually enforce it aggressively. And people are like, well, I guess you're a good guy. So I think it remains to be seen. Gemfan says in the chat, other companies are copying the prop and calling them their own design. Interesting move, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Grim FPV, the patent has been granted, is our understanding.
Yeah, the patent was filed back in 2017. So this came through, or 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. But it did come through, I believe, on 2021, 9/14 was the publication. It's active until 2036. So
yeah. So interesting. I feel like that's pretty much all we have to say about it, because we're not really qualified to do an analysis. We don't actually. Gemfan hasn't even said who else might be infringing or who else might not be. I think they're trying to sort of handle it privately to not make a big stink. But yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, keep an eye out for that. There will not be any more props that look like a Gemfan 51466, I guess. I like that prop. Not for long, right?